I wrote down a column, the secular things that I did, my businesses, so on. Then I put over on this side what I called the religious things. But the truth of the matter is, that's wrong. And Dick taught me what I'm going to tell you. You see, it's when they blend.
You know, it's funny because I think if you ask the family, we were just really not sure what this thing was all about. I mean, all of a sudden, you know, here Dad, who, you know, had been a businessman entitled to Virginia all his life, all of a sudden he started talking about going to the villages of India and, you know, Cambodia and all this stuff. But there were pieces all along in his faith journey that as you connect the dots, you can see God taking him to exactly that point.
I knew faith-based ministries, but here was one started by a businessman, and it was violating all of the rules of the typical ministry. He talked about results and accountability and leverage. I just loved the sound of it.
When we started, you know, it was hard. There were a lot of funny things happening because we didn't know what we were doing. But it was obvious after we'd been going a little while that Doyce began to see the bigger vision and the bigger opportunity.
The Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish, but where there is no plan, the vision perishes. So Doyce has always had a plan.
As I began to listen to Dick, I heard the gospel in a way that I'd never heard it. And that drove me to want the world to hear the gospel the way he taught it.
He's always been one who loves the Apostle Paul. And Paul would always, everything he did had to do with how do we advance the gospel. And I think that's a part of Dad's heart.
The tendency of many ministries, and it's not a negative, but they become involved in everything, the social issues, you know, feeding and so on. And we really think that's a role of the church. That if we bring the church into its rightful place, then it'll do those things.
These communities of faith are being built through the Word being taught by Dick and in his way that's so accessible. And then communities of faith being formed, and then here comes Doyce. And so it's like if we were on the football field, Dick laterals the ball to Doyce, Doyce carries it down the field by building churches, and in turn those churches building more churches, so you get this incredible webbing effect across whole communities and whole countries.
The church gives a big impact in the community. It's not used as a worshiping place only. It's used as also as a nursery school. It's used as a daycare center. So it's a joy to the community. Even to the leaders of the community, they see it's a big help.
This ministry is just a little over 20 years old. They've built over 3,200 churches in 47 countries around the world, with a staff that is averaged from 15 to 26 people. And their core strategy is partnerships.
We say we will walk alongside you, we're just not going to give you a check. You have to bring to the table what you can bring, and we're building your church. It's not an ICM church, it's whatever group we're working with.
I describe the partnership as one end to the other. We're the agent, with the donor on one side and the work in the field on the other side, and God being the umbrella over the top. And our part is to make these connections and build expectations and honor expectations.
There's one church in India that was started by one of our friends, Jack Eckert, and that church now I think has 17,000 people. Another one started by Jack and Doyce many years ago, has over 20 different churches. All of these are the idea of multiplication. It's very practical, it's very accountable, and it's very real.
think he's been in very close contact with the Lord, and always has been. And I think he's let the Lord influence everything he does.
A lot of people see just what's there. They don't see what could be. And the thing that I've loved about Doyce is he sees what could be. And that's true in terms of building buildings and envisioning them in his mind's eye before they're built. But it also has to do with people's lives.
I have a logo, the whole word for the whole world, and he's made it possible for me to do that. And so I'm so grateful for him and for the way God has used him to, you know, help me experience my dream.
He's taught us to live with expectation, to keep our eyes open to the wonders.
You never stop. You're still on this earth, you're still working for the Lord, the Lord still loves you, and you still love him. And this is what I'm seeing right now. He's not going to stop while he's here on earth.
When I see how he's living his life, I'm saying, wait a minute, at 64, I'm ready to start. So all of a sudden, he's changing where the finish line is for me.
He is just so passionate about what God has called him to do and what God has allowed him to do. I think he is probably more surprised than anybody that God has used him to grow ICM into what it is today.
What we're doing is trying to share the person of Christ, that the world might know him and know the truth. And the truth will set you free.